You're listening to Plants and Politics with Gina Bonanno-Lemos. If you're ready to hear the truth about both sides of the aisle, what's really going on in America, and how big money interests prevent change to keep you sick, broke, and desperate, then play on. Everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. This is Gina. So Trump is really going full-blown fascist. I'm telling you, it's like I said, I really didn't want to have to vote for Biden, but at this point, I don't see any choice. This is insane. A couple months ago, Trump all of a sudden announced that he was going to designate Antifa a terrorist organization, which is ridiculous on so many levels. I mean, the fact that it's not actually an organization, so to speak, that it's more of a movement and more of an idea of being anti-fascist, being against fascism. But nevertheless, he said, yeah, I'm going to designate them as a terrorist organization. So one of the reasons, as Ken Klippenstein from The Nation reports, one of the reasons for doing this is because once a group is designated as a terrorist organization, it gives the government this overwhelming amount of authority to be intrusive, to monitor them, to gather intel on them. So that is the basis, and that's what everyone was concerned about. Well, now it looks like this is coming to pass. So The Nation also reported just the other day, also, it was yesterday as a matter of fact, also by Ken Klippenstein, he was able to get a hold of Homeland Security documents. Someone gave him this exclusively. And this document outlines how Department of Homeland Security, DHS, intelligence officials are targeting activists. And they're basically trying to make them into Antifa members, even if they're not, even if they don't consider themselves Antifa, and they have nothing to do with anyone else. But if they're just showing up at protests, if they happen to be in the vicinity of someone else who might be considered Antifa, and what they're trying to do is tie them through, twisting themselves into pretzels, tie them to international and foreign terrorism groups. So, for example, one of the people that they have been tracking who had no idea that he was being tracked is a guy who has a podcast. He's a lefty like me. And so this left-wing podcast host, he was actually someone who traveled over to Syria and fought against ISIS. But they're trying to claim that he is a terrorist, that he's at least tied to a foreign terrorist group. So they talked with someone who has knowledge of this. They talked with someone who's a former, and this I believe is who leaked the document to them. It's a former DHS intelligence officer. And this person said, quote, "They targeted Americans like they're Al-Qaeda." The officer, it says, who served for years in DHS's Office of Intelligence and Analysis, compared the operations to illegal surveillance of activists during the civil rights era. So he said, quote, "They essentially were violating people's rights like this was the 60s, the type of shit the church and Pike committees had to address." So this is just so over the top and so frightening, because once you designate someone or a group as a terrorist group or a terrorist themselves, it gives you more broad powers. It gives you sweeping powers to surveil them, to follow them, to be intrusive in every part of their life. So just to give you an example, here's the type of information that they were gathering on this left-wing podcast host and others. They were gathering information like their social security numbers, their home address, social media account information. And this data, they said, was generated by DHS's tactical terrorism response teams. It is unbelievable. This stuff needs to end, and it needs to end immediately. Just last week, we also heard from the DHS acting secretary, Chad Wolf, himself came out and said that he removed the head of their intelligence branch because they confirmed that their office was compiling information on journalists. This administration is completely and totally out of control. I don't want to hear anybody on the right bitch and moan about Marxism and communism. Either you believe in the Constitution or you don't. Either you believe in First Amendment rights and you believe in the rights of these people to go out and protest and to speak freely, or you don't. Because let me tell you something. Trump isn't going to be president forever, regardless of what you think. And are you going to be okay in the future if a President AOC decides, I'm going to designate MAGA people as a terrorist group? A lot of right-wingers have committed major acts of violence in the past few years, mass murders under the name of Trump or in the name of Trump. I think they should be a terrorist organization. We're going to start surveilling everybody who has been to a Trump rally and has worn a MAGA hat. How would you feel? You going to be okay with that? Would you like everybody on the left to cheer that on? Or would you like for us to stand up and say, no, this is not how we do things in America? Would you be okay if a President AOC or a President Ilhan Omar, perhaps, decided that all of those people who showed up at the State House in Michigan with their guns, screaming in police officers' faces while the coronavirus was raging, maybe she should designate them as a terrorist organization and start surveilling those people? See if maybe they're tied somehow to foreign actors, foreign terrorist groups. This is insane, guys. If you don't understand that Antifa is just an idea, that it is literally anti-fascist, I don't know what to say. I mean, there was nothing found. That was the other report that came out in June, was that the FBI released their findings and found no evidence of wrongdoing on the part of Antifa. They said, quote, the FBI's Washington field office, quote, has no intelligence indicating Antifa involvement/presence in the violence that occurred on May 31st during the DC area protests over the murder of George Floyd. So without any evidence, without anything to go on, it is so clear that Trump is using this to gin up support, to try to get his base riled up for political purposes. Either that, or he's trying to quash everything that's going on the left, or both. I mean, it's a win-win, right? If he can scare people into staying home, if he can terrify people into thinking that they're going to be surveilled and followed and picked apart and potentially just be grabbed off the street like he has been doing, thrown into unmarked vehicles and held against your will until you sign a document saying that you agree not to protest anymore, totally against your civil liberties, your civil rights. I mean, yeah, there's a certain amount of people out there who just won't show up, who will say, it's not worth it. I don't need the hassle. I'm just not going to go out and protest. And I really think that that's at the heart of all of this. I think that's the key. I think he rules by terror. He rules by intimidation, and to hell with the Constitution and to hell with anybody's civil rights. Who's going to stop me? So if you're on the right and you're cheering this on, just keep it in mind. What do you want us on the left to do if President Ilhan Omar decides to surveil you in the future? Do you want us to stand up for your civil liberties and your civil rights and your constitutional rights? Or do you want us to go, not me, not my problem. They did it to us. Better make that decision quick. November's coming. All right, guys. As always, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. I will let you know when there's more terrifying news. Take care. Thanks for listening to Plants and Politics. The only way we can take our country and power back is to spread the truth and build an army. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again.